Hello, this is First Fire Non-Assault Move. Welcome back to the 39th video in the War in the East series. Let's get a situation report. It is the third week of November, the second week of snow. Check it out here, snow and ice, ice level 2. We still have snowfall, so we have continued our German winter offensive for 1942. So let's take a look how that's playing out with Army Group North first. Zooming in to the Tallinn region. We finally have broken through and made significant progress, disrupting the Soviets all throughout this sector, and now besieging and encircling Tallinn, pushing the Soviets back to the east, our right flank. We have cleared this part of the map as we come to the Gulf of Finland and the Baltic Sea. This is Isthmus, which there is a Soviet formation here. I was surprised to see that, but we just have a security regiment holding the line right now. We may have to reinforce, but right now the Soviets don't seem... Well, we'll see if they're intent on breaking out. On that note, we continue to slowly reinforce Army Group North. Most of the reinforcements have been sent to participate in this offensive, and we haven't stripped any forces here. We're still continuing to attack the Soviets in this sector. Again, the theme for this winter offensive is to keep the Soviets off balance, cause pressure points throughout their front where they have to react and really be in disarray towards our actions in this offensive. So looking closer, Tallinn will be taken probably in the next, well, it depends. We're more than likely going to have a blizzard. We're getting into December. We'll definitely start to have blizzards in January and February. So we may have snowfall for the next 2 or 3 turns, maybe 4. So we'll still try to attack if there is snow. So Tallinn is there. We have a rupture in their front, threatening to encircle these Soviet forces that have been up to the bank, on the other side of the bank of this river, holding in place. Now, to the north of them, they have a huge gap, well, relatively, a significant gap in their lines, and if we could push a little further, if the next turn is snow, we'll reach the Pipus. If they do not get out of harm's way, we'll have these forces encircled. Again, yeah, we can just take a look at the amount of attacks that were taking place. Did our airdrops. Oh, and speaking of reinforcements, we did have the 12th Infantry Corps that was down here in Smolensk. We had pulled them out of the line, and they were sitting there for about 3 weeks, 2 or 3 weeks. So I said, you know what? The way this is shaping up, we're getting some success. Let's further our troop count in this area of operations. And so we brought in the 12th Infantry Corps to continue to put the pressure on the Soviets and make something out of this. And they will be in place for 1943 spring and summer offensive. I want to make the most of this now while we can to get it into the best shape possible to have us poised to threaten Leningrad. I like how this is looking right now. And we definitely have superior forces now from Pskov all the way up to Tallinn. If we move down from Pskov to Veliky Luki, oh, was it this turn? I forget. Did I mention that we took Veliky Luki? I think it was this turn. The Soviets, yeah, last turn. The Soviets pulled back and conceded Veliky Luki. So we now have that city in our hands, and we have strong infantry forces here to hold on to it. Soviets have a decent concentration of forces, but we as well are digging in, ready for blizzard weather, and any attempt the Soviets make for attacks, I think we'll be prepared for that. And definitely want to hold on to Veliky Luki. It was fairly arduous to finally reach Veliky Luki again and finally take back the town. All right, so Veliky Luki down to Smolensk. Made some attacks to the north, pushing back the Soviets. We have this infantry corps almost surrounded, but they could pull back, and they could also move forces back in here to get them in supply, but just keeping the pressure on. Having these small threats across the front, Soviets have to do something about. We push the Soviets back, not letting them get into those fort levels if they are able to remain stationary and build up over time. So that is good for us if there are any future operations. Already, though, they're at fort level 2 in some places. Now, how is that disrupted cavalry corps able to be in? Oh, that's right, because the fort levels do remain in place in a vacated hex for a little while. They do degrade over time. So that was a fort level 2 at one point, and disrupted unit probably moved into it. All right, from, say, Smolensk here. So it's a little thin, but likewise, the Soviets have very thin lines of their own with no offensive threat to even talk about. So don't feel too concerned about this sector of the front. We are going to pull out one Panzer Corps and route them up into the Smolensk area of operations, just for 1943 to have that option available to us should the Soviets mock us and have a thin defensive line once spring breaks in 1943, since we'll see the bulk of their forces, their combat power is further south. All right, so moving down in and around Bryansk. We're fairly strong here. Very fine infantry divisions able to achieve dominance in localized attacks on the Soviets and make some progress. Did a few attacks here and there just to disrupt the Soviets, push them back, and again not let those fort levels build up should this sector of the front be a focal point for offensive operations, since it's fairly nice terrain south of Moscow, and we do have some Panzer Corps that could be inserted behind the front here once the blizzard weathers start and we start to get mud season as 1943 arrives, the spring. Orel, we pulled all our Panzer Corps out. They are now on the rail lines here. So it's just infantry holding in place, and the Soviets are equally strong here, so I don't anticipate any further progress towards Orel, but we're 10 miles away from Orel once 1943 hits, so that's not bad. And we may actually have some progress down here to the south, where the Soviets are, they have defense in depth, what we don't see in other places. So they're fairly strong here, but we are as well. So moving down further in and around Kursk, we had that bridgehead. We have now increased it and have a penetration just to the west of Kursk. We are only 30 miles from Kursk with no Soviet forces really to talk about. They're going to have to reduce this concentration and come down and once again plug a rupture in their front, keeping them off balance, having to react over and over again. The Soviet forces are in danger of being encircled should the Soviets just pull back to Kursk. We will encircle them, but they have a 20-mile gap between our, 30 miles, and we still would have to push this division aside. But there's a threat here to encircle these Soviets. And if we move further down, Sumy, we are finally making progress to the north and south, and we will take Sumy in the next couple of turns. I'm pretty confident about that because the Soviets just won't be able to keep up the pressure we're putting on them. We're going to be able to either rout, shatter, and severely maul these two divisions to the north of us, and they're going to have to pull forces back because they cannot ignore what we have going on in Kharkov, and it's just kind of a stalemate here along this sector just south of Belgorod and north of Kharkov. Kharkov has been grown quiet. The Soviets, again, we see a concentration of Soviet forces that reacted to the breakthrough that we had just to the east of Kharkov. Remember, we had that 50 to 60 mile gap where there are no Soviet forces to be seen. They have now arrived and have reestablished a front in place where they expected our axis of advance to continue, but we shifted gears once again and went south several handful of weeks ago. And we made progress down here, and now a nice, clean defensive line on the west bank of the Donets. Ooh, the infamous Donets. A lot of action took place. So we have a nice defensive line there, holding the north flank of our axis of advance that took place with our committed Panzer Corps, and let's see how that shaped up. If you remember, there were no Soviets really to be seen once we had that fairly narrow penetration to the east of Dnepropetrovsk. We could have attacked further south and west towards, oh yes, I know how to say this city now because I looked it up. It's Zaporozhye, which really rolls off the tongue, Zaporozhye. Phonetically, that's, I believe, how you say it, Zaporozhye. So Dnepropetrovsk and Zaporozhye. So we could have pushed down closer to Zaporozhye to the south, but we were strung out, and we just didn't have the movement factors and the support from our infantry that contributed to the breach in the Soviets' lines. So we made a more modest encirclement, and we were talking about the outcome of this rupture in their front. At the very least, we would certainly have dislodged the Soviets' defense, the strategic defense of the Dnepr, really from Dnepropetrovsk south, which they had held for so long. Now we are well over the Dnepr and threatening them with even larger encirclements. So we scaled it back a little bit, had a little more of a modest encirclement. So that was, course of action Bravo, which is that is a significant success for us. We could have had a larger encirclement, but we just didn't have the combat power, like I was saying. So win-win. We are disrupting the Soviets' defense on the east bank of the Dnepr. We have now encircled Dnepropetrovsk with those nice three more tank corps to encircle. Two of them guards, some prestige there, circling some guards formations. All right. Dnepropetrovsk may be a bear, just like it was to take Kharkov, to finally reduce the city and occupy it, because it's a source of supply still for these formations. But these formations we should be able to reduce them and force them to surrender in the next turn. And we made sure we were very strong, and we have a little screening force with a brigade and a Slovakian motorized division, just so that these forces couldn't easily move up adjacent, and that we are encircling panzer divisions couldn't be attacked from the north and the south so easily. That could be achieved here, but I believe, yeah, let's look. Oh yeah, there's no way on earth that these three Soviet tank corps can attack over the river with any strength. We were trying to do that here, and if you take a look, we can't even do a deliberate attack. They're all, yeah, we can't even attack over the river. We don't have the combat power because we did move adjacent here and we did stack up. Yeah, I can't even do a deliberate. It's only a hasty. We just don't have the movement factors and the ability in this snow over the Dnepr to attack a dug-in Soviet infantry corps. So don't see any threat from these tank corps. If they attack north, well, that's fine. There's no problem there. We'll be able to destroy them on the northern bank of the Dnepr. So this is great. This is a significant result of this turn, the third week of November. And if we move further south of Dnepropetrovsk and Zaporozhye, so easy to say that now, we have massed up 11th Army to the south of Zaporozhye, seeking a bridgehead, which we achieved with these three infantry divisions, we are able to attack. For some reason, these divisions, and maybe they had better command and control, better supply, better gasoline, all the factors involved to make an offensive, an attack over the Dnepr in these conditions, and we were able to achieve that, but not able to follow it up anywhere else. But now we are over the Dnepr in another spot on the Soviet front without really significant enough Soviet forces to kick us back like they have done here and in other places a handful of times. Romanians have relieved the Germans in place. The 11th Army has now shifted north on the west bank of the Dnepr to exploit this bridgehead and to put further pressure on the Soviets where their line is rather thin. Apologies for that interruption. So we do have that bridgehead here, and the Soviets they have a contiguous line of defense on the east bank of the Dnepr, but they are thin, only one division high in these hexes with no real operational reserves behind them. So any other bridgehead over the Dnepr is going to be very advantageous for us to further exploit this situation against the Soviets and maybe make it to the Crimea. Highly doubtful before 1942 ends and we reach blizzard conditions. It could prove very difficult to accomplish that under blizzard conditions. But still, the threat is there, and we'll take advantage of that. Our 3 Panzer Corps had pulled out, and they still remain on the lines, the railroad lines, to possibly be repositioned. What I've done a few times is I just get them on the rail line, even if I have to move them 3 or 4 hexes, and then I take them off the rail lines. That just preserves the gas and all their supplies, and we had ample rail capacity to do that. So, take full advantage of that. Keep our panzers in very good supply, and no need to move them overland. So that is the situation report for all 3 army groups. We are ready to hit next turn. I think we got them in Dnepropetrovsk. I don't think they're going to be able to have 3 of our Panzer Corps withdraw. Now, we're kind of in a tight spot because those 3 Panzer Corps have to, I believe, withdraw in tandem, so they don't have it. There's only space for 1 Panzer Corps in the adjacent hex, so let's hope they hold out. South and east to defend Kursk, more than likely there. Yeah, the Soviets are already have their snowshoes on and are getting out of town south of Kursk. No? Really? Why would you do that and not try to not be encircled? They see a regiment. I think they have to attack a regiment. Yeah. Kind of like our Axis miners. No. Just made it over the river. Good hold. Phew. No. Kind of massing up a little bit on a thin stretch. That's where we took out the 12th Corps. Pretty good results. Drawing each, forcing us to draw. Well, that's a lot of Soviets right there. This could be their heaviest concentration on the front, other than between Kursk and Orel, other than further south in Army Group South's area of operations. testing the lines here. How dare they? I fully anticipate this will be the pattern of the Soviets during the blizzard months, so we can't dismiss what they're going to be capable of doing in the next couple of months as we come into January and February. They will always attack the Romanians. The consolation is that we're not going to be under any special rules. I think we'll all be under the same constraints with blizzard conditions and snow conditions. You're gonna have to do better than that. Unless they have troops in front of those Panzer Corps, we should be able to encircle those troops. Which paves the way, really, to Leningrad, unless they bring in some reserves. To plug that land bridge there between the Peipus and the Gulf of Finland, which we're gunning for. Alright. Soviets flexed their muscles here and there. No real threats. We just have to be mindful from Smolensk down to Bryansk, that bend in our front as it bows out, and we have defending it not to the greatest strength, but enough for now. Economy of force. We have to do it. Have to do it. What is this weather now we are facing? Right about average. 61 tanks. One of our panzer divisions did get attacked, and as well as a Slovakian motorized division and the brigade as well, motorized brigade. So took some AFE losses. 200 again, over 200. Modest for the Soviets here. All right. Closing in. 10 million. A couple million away, but this could jump up when we finish off the encirclement of Dnepropetrovsk, as well as Tallinn. And where else did we have a... No, I think right around somewhere in Army Group Center's area of operations we had that threat when we crossed the river with the 14th Panzer Corps, but I think those divisions got out of harm's way. So pretty standard here for losses. Soviets maybe a little high in tanks. We're a little over 20, but this is kind of standard. But mounting up for both sides. We're at 2 million now. Soviets closing in on 10, so that is good. We want to get that would be 5 to 1. That'd be good odds to keep this reduced and increase this. All right. What is the weather? Snow across all 3 Soviet zones in ice level 3. It has not jumped up dramatically, so that is good. We have to watch out for the ice levels as it applies to some of these lakes where they become frozen and troops can move across them. How are they able to get this many forces like this? I think we can break out. We're going to break out and encircle them. I'm confident in this happening. We have to do the order of attacks though, because we don't want to attack here, push this division back here, which would make it even further difficult for the 27th Panzer to attack south and east. Do have some... Oh, look at that. Not bad. Very well supplied. Infantry division still strong. Still strong. We can defend economy of force there, no problem. Move back our regiment. They seem to be the decoy for the Soviets. Attack regiments and attack Axis miners. What did this turn out to be? 4-4. We will not pursue. We'll just keep this regiment here just to guard against any encroachments. So yeah, remaining strategically, the remaining concentration of Soviet forces, where are we finding those? Definitely here. We can see a buildup. Orel, this is where they've reacted to a series of our offensives and axes of advance and ruptures in their front. So they're coming to react to that, and the residual forces are there, and those can be used for offensive operations of their own. And we're finding that out. So definitely have superior combat power to our own divisions. Or we may pull back, shorten our lines a little bit, and then just remain in place and start to dig in and develop our own fort levels there. Yeah, they have some. This grouping is just begging to be encircled. May have to posture to accomplish that. Yeah, we'll straighten out. That will get a little stronger, but they're going to have to do something about this. They're getting out of harm's way. Continue to press the attack above Sumy. And looking further south, Kharkov. This is probably going to be a snapshot of how the front will look like for the next couple of months. December, January, Feb. This may look the same once spring breaks. Doesn't look like the Soviets are really mounting any offensive in this sector. They would consciously have to do that. Assemble forces somewhere along this front, and I don't see that happening. I think they're more than happy to attack where their forces ended up, where they're trying to defend against our own attacks, and that looks like it's in this region between Kursk and Orel. And a little bit up here where we're about on equal footing combat power, so there'll be a back and forth here during the remainder of the snow months. Moving a little further south, let's see. Plans. All right. So they did commit all their operational reserves. I think they have arrived, and this is what we're looking at. Let's take a peek. Some aerial recon. Yep. They definitely have pushed everything they have to stop this. So like we were saying, the Soviets have the bulk of their forces really south of Kharkov. Still, that was the case for most of 1942, and it remains to be the case now. And I imagine it to be the situation strategically, Soviet force commitment in this region, where they really have increased their troop count and their forces to counter most of our offensives, which have been, to be fair, from like middling line of Army Group Center's front down to Army Group South. This is really where we've been doing all the damage. So it can be, it's logical that the Soviets would have their greatest force count, troop count here. So we'll see what we can do to take advantage of that and get some more larger encirclements. Finish off this pocket. Increase our bridgehead across the Dnepr here. And just really come online, get adjacent, and prepare for the blizzards that are about to arrive. I don't see this German winter offensive lasting much longer, maybe another turn or two, and after that we will go into rest and refit during the blizzards and look for some some more isolated opportunities where we can continue the offensive. I have to see how it plays out during a blizzard turn now that we're not under the constraints of a 1941 special rule, and just see what kind of uh, negative modifiers are applied to combat resolution and movement. If it's not as bad as I'm thinking it's going to be, maybe we will attack more than I'm anticipating now we would do during the course of the winter as it sets in and remains for the next couple of months. All right, and partisans have arrived again, of course. Take a snapshot of what the front is looking like. It's got even more squiggly. Now that we pushed the forces back all the way to Tallinn, we will reach this land bridge between Peipus and Gulf of Finland and straighten it out even more. So all these forces would really be condensed along a much shorter front. Likewise the Soviets, but again, we will benefit more from that than they. It could give us the opportunity to maybe reassign some of these forces and break out in Pskov area or elsewhere, maybe along Army Group Center. We'll come up with a plan and execute it. Look at this. Very fascinating. Finally, and just look at all these forces visually. All these forces applied to a front really this short as we reach Sea of Azov. That is amazing. That's fantastic. 3 Panzer Corps, all of 11th Army, all the reinforcements we also had put here, plus the Romanians. Yeah, Army Group South will be very strong. Should we be able to shorten this line here? So I'm going to end the video here. A lot has happened over the past 2 weeks in our German mini offensive, and the big question on the horizon is, to what extent does blizzard weather now affect us for offensive operations? And that could determine our actions for the rest of 1942 and the winter of 1943 before we start to reach mud season and 1943 spring. If it becomes blizzard-like and we really aren't able to produce much offensively and there's no real change to the front, then I'll skip ahead some turns before we put content up on the channel. And we'll definitely do that again once mud weather arrives. We had 4 weeks of that already, so I will do the same as 1942 arrives. So we're already at episode 39. We're getting into the 40s. Let's take a guess now when this might all end. What episode might it end? I'm thinking mid to low 40s. Because we'll skip a lot of turns for mud and potentially blizzard, and once 1943 arrives, we already talked about the potential of achieving a decisive Axis victory by getting more of these victory locations, which are very achievable, and maybe that could occur somewhere in mid to late 1943. Fantastic. I hope you enjoyed watching this video. This is First Fire, non-assault move out.